Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to week two of Athena. We finally made it. So thank you for joining us. I will pass over to our very own Jess Rush, who is going to be hosting this panel on bridging the digital skills gap. So over to you, Jess.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. And hi, everyone. Apologies for running a little bit behind schedule. There should hopefully be someone else joining us, but they've got caught up with something. So they may be able to join us, but if not, it's fine. I've got two panelists here with me who I will introduce very shortly. Just to start off with, first of all, so my name is Jess Rush and I'm the sales lead for Showcode. Those of you who were involved in the Discord discussions that we've been having over the weekend with the hack, you may know me better as Pink Fizz. So hi, putting a face to the name. What we're going to be talking about today is bridging the digital skills gap. So I've been looking forward to hosting this conversation as it's definitely been sparking a lot of debate recently and conversation, I suppose in recent weeks and months, just due to the remote world that we now find ourselves in. And I suppose even though it's been an area that, an issue that has been developing for a number of years, the last year with COVID and everything has really seen this conversation sort of sparked up a lot. One BBC article even said that the UK in particular is heading towards a digital skills shortage, something which we'll be talking a lot more about throughout the conversation. However, for now, I'm just going to introduce our panelists. So at the moment, we've got Linda and Marie with ourselves. Thank you so much, Marie, for stepping in last minute due to Manira being sick. Manira, we hope you feel better very soon. But Linda, if you'd like to start off first of all with introducing yourself.
Hi there, I am Linda Scott. I am the current Chief Marketing Officer and Head of Industry Engagement at CodeClan. I'm also a Scottish Chambers Director and have been for 4 years. I am fairly new to the tech world altogether. I come from a sort of business background and I was a Chief Executive at Chamber of Commerce for 7 years. And I came into CodeClan to help support the growth. I'm sort of taking it from a startup to a scale up. And 2 years down the line, I'm still there. I love it. And I can't imagine myself ever not being involved in the tech and digital space. So from someone with no background whatsoever, I've been welcomed with open arms and become very fascinated with it. It's an amazing world. It's a fun world. When you're in the chamber world, you sort of think the chamber is the world. It's the world of business, and that's what it is. And then you come outside the chamber bubble, and there's this huge, amazing, exciting world, which is the world of digital. I've explained it to people in the past, for somebody like me that's never been involved in it before, as something like going through the cupboard in Narnia. Like you're going into this cupboard thinking, what is this? What's involved? And then you come out the other side and there's this magical fantasy land that has many opportunities.
Who doesn't love a bit of fantasy, I have to say. Thank you so much for that, Linda. And Marie, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi there, I'm Maddie Mclaughlin, and I work for Fanjo, which is a digital entertainment company. Most of our product is actually in the States. I am a technical program manager there, and my focus is on engineering insights and talent insights. So it's looking at how we improve our engineering throughput, where our bottlenecks are, but also looking at how we tackle those bottlenecks from a talent and hiring perspective as well, so that we can understand what our needs are going to be in the near future and try and improve our hiring accordingly. So as part of that, I've been kind of seconded in as part of our relationship with CodeClan and the work that Linda is doing, in that we've recently kind of been working with them, hoping to set up a formal partnership with them, particularly to look at our diversity of hiring and try and open up new hiring pools, essentially, for people going through boot camps who maybe haven't came into the tech industry in a traditional way, I guess. So yeah, that's me. I've been in IT for 9 years. I've done various roles. I've been a business analyst, I've been a software engineer, product owner, scrum master, and now I'm a program manager. So it's more about the management piece now.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. So I suppose we'll just kick off the discussion. First thing I wanted to sort of bring up was a stat that has recently been recorded that apparently in the last 6 years, there's been a 40% drop in young people choosing IT as a GCSE, which doesn't really bode well for the skill gap that we are obviously discussing at the moment, and obviously the wider world has been discussing. I suppose personally for myself, IT, even though it was over 10 years ago when I chose my GCSEs, IT just wasn't appealing, partly because it was a thick textbook, which I always thought was quite ironic, learning about tech from a textbook. And it just wasn't for me. But then again, I suppose, and this is a subject that we brought up in the office last week when I was with one of our developers, Denise, and she was saying, well, IT is like your Windows, your Excel, and so on. Like that's not computing, that's not computer science. So maybe it's the way it's being, I suppose, portrayed within schools. So I suppose, Linda, like how much of a contributing factor do you think the way tech is taught in schools across the UK and probably schools across the world is to the skills gap, both from like an engagement perspective, but a quality perspective too?
I think it's very important, but it's a difficult question to completely answer, because you can't start saying, oh, schools are doing it wrong, and they're not, they're not doing it right, they're not teaching it right, and because there's a lot of really good schools in our area doing a fantastic job in that space. Yeah. It's in my eyes, it's the entire perception maybe of schools. It's a choice as well. My kids have just made their choice. It's in a column, maybe clashes against biology and chemistry. It's maybe shouldn't be pigeonholed in that choice as such. I think in Mark Logan's report, it was mentioned it should be accessible to everybody. It's, the world of tech and digital is the future. We can't stop it. And it will be, and it used to be, even in the time that I've been involved in tech, it was tech companies, and you became a software developer to go and work in a tech company like FanDuel. Well, I think those days are changing. I think nearly every industry, every sector will have some kind of tech and digital background to it. So in my eyes, it's starting to become as important as maths and English, or, compulsory language. I think schools need more support from industry. In my time in developing young workforce, the more the industry was engaged in schools, in subjects, and coming and supporting, the better support that they got. I think schools need a lot of help. I think it needs a bit of a facelift in schools. I think kids are not taking it because it looks a bit dull. And I know when I speak to my kids, they go, I don't want to code. I tried it and I don't like it, and that's the end of the conversation. I had a quick chat with Tony Scullion from Dress Code before I came on today, because she is an amazing campaigner for improving things within schools. And she said they need to maybe have more events, change the way it's done, taster sessions, hackathons within schools, mini hackathons, show young people the different things that are capable or possible in that space. I don't think schools have that sort of maybe background or knowledge that this is where industry comes in to showcase more what can happen in that space. And I think it's making young people understand as well that the vast spectrum of jobs that are out there, it's not just about becoming a software developer. There is the endless job. We even struggle with that in Code Clan, as to be making that aware of the different kind of jobs that are in there. It's never ending. And it's changing the perception of parents as well. Like, they'll go, because if they don't do it or they don't understand it, they'll not maybe choose it again as a subject choice. So it's not just down to schools in my eyes. It's a collection of support to improve that stat.
Definitely. I think, the influences that we get, I think choosing subjects from a young age, I think it's a lot of pressure as well on kids, like to make so many big life choices at such a young age. It's always been something that I've never quite understood, why kids are put under so much pressure to basically choose what's going to be your future. And I think, the way it's educated in schools, there's a lot of resources out there. There are some schools who, as you say, are doing it brilliantly, but it has also come up that in a thread I was in the other week, was some schools don't even teach any form of IT. So it's not the boring IT, it's just nothing at all. And that was quite daunting. So I was thinking, well, how many schools are there like that as well, where there's no exposure to it? But I don't know, Marie, have you got anything to sort of add to it?
Agree with absolutely everything Linda said there. I think a huge part of it is a kind of cultural understanding of what the role actually is and where IT sits. as you said, most people think, oh, I want to be a coder. And there's, as far as I'm aware, before you go into like looking at it at university level or a bootcamp level, very little focus on the design elements of it, the graphical elements of it, testing elements of it, problem solving elements of it. And it's to just make it about coding, it is, I think, losing a lot of the context. And I think as I was reflecting on this before this panel, I was kind of thinking that I'm equally guilty of this, right? Because people say, well, what job do you do? And 9 times out of 10, I'll say I work in IT. Because I don't want to bore people, and I don't want to intimidate people or lose their interest entirely. But part of that means I'm kind of contributing to the fact that probably my own family, my nieces and nephews, probably don't really know what I do for a living. And therefore, how can I expect schools and teachers to then sit down and educate people on this? And I think getting people with these backgrounds, whether it's careers events and things, into the schools to actually talk to people who are making those decisions would be a massive improvement and a massive step forward. I'm absolutely baffled that there's a school out there that's not teaching IT at any level. That is absolutely horrifying.
It really, really shocked me. I think he was quite shocked as well, because when he found out his daughter, that wasn't an option. Like, she couldn't like pick that, or like there just wasn't a choice. It really shocked him, because he thought reputably the school is a very, very good grammar school from what he knew when she started there. But yeah, it's now come to light that there's no way she can learn sort of tech within the school. But I suppose, fortunately, there are other resources out there, like obviously the access on the internet. There are things becoming more accessible, but yeah, still quite daunting. And yeah, touching on that with the what jobs can you do within technology? I mean, all 3 of us here, we work in tech, but I can't code. I don't. You don't need to though. Like, and again, I can't. Marie, the same with you. My family, when they say, "So what do you do?" I'm like, "I sell software." They're like, "Oh," and you can just see the looks on their faces going, "No, thank you. Let's not ask any more questions." And I was like, well, to be fair, it's actually what I do is really interesting. Like, I'm personally a big talker, which hence why I'm hosting one of these chats. So for me, that communication side is really important, and being able to take quite a complex idea and then make it really simple and be able to help people is what I love. And the fact that tech does that, even though I can't do all of the coding side to it or the design side, it's great to be part of the industry. And similar to what you guys are doing, like the roles that you have, we're all working in that industry, and it's just having that, I suppose, that education piece from a younger age. Like, you don't have to code to work in tech, but there's a lot there that needs to be sort of built from the foundations up, I think, giving it that, as you said, Linda, sort of giving it a makeover. And I guess seeing how I suppose companies could maybe influence younger ages and help schools, because they're trying their best with limited resources as well. So it'd be interesting to see what can be done. But sort of leaning on that question, so obviously with the decline in those choosing the subject, but does it really equip those who choose it with the skills that they need anyway? I suppose that's leaning on like the jobs that they want to get into. Like, is it really essential that people do IT in order to get into tech? Which I suppose we just answered is no, but I don't know if there's anything either of you two wanted to add to that.
Well, I suppose what I've been encouraging my kids to do is, because I know and understand that sort of what we look for from Code Clan, is, maths is important, physics are important. So it's not always, well, I'm not the expert in this by any means whatsoever. I'm new to it all, but from what I've sort of understanding is coming out with these kinds of skills, it's not necessarily always about actually learning these skills in schools. It would be helpful, it'd be very helpful, especially at a very young age, even if it was being introduced as primary school, really, so they start to see this as something they could do. But maths and physics and design, my daughter's doing design, and all those 3 subjects. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, good, whatever. If she's not interested just now, she will be one day.
No, definitely. I suppose, yeah, so we focus obviously quite a lot on the school side of things, and appreciate, unfortunately, Carme hasn't been able to make it to the call. So I'm going to open this up to you two to see what thoughts you had on this. So obviously last week, a lot of the conversation we were having with our talks with women in tech, a lot of them had never really considered working in tech until they left university. So I suppose like when did you, like, obviously Linda, you've recently joined CodeClan, it's a very new industry for you. Marie, obviously you've been in IT for a number of years, but I suppose it'd be great to find out a bit more sort of like what has interested you the most, and what other avenues are you would you sort of encourage people to look at if they're maybe past the natural education age and maybe looking at doing a career switch.
So my background is a little bit interesting in that I chose computing at school, and I done my hires in that. I got my A, and but then I wanted to leave school in 5th year, and I was good at English and I was good at computing, and I was nervous about taking computing science at university. At that age, at 16, I was like, it'll be a classroom full of boys. I'm going to be the least educated person. I know my English a bit better, and it sounds more fun, less boring. So I went and done my English degree. So originally I done an English degree, and then it was only when I was in the English degree I got into with some people in the English language department who were using computers to analyse books. And I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. I was like, oh my God, you don't need to work out the theme of a book. A computer can tell you. What? And got into with them, and they were like, you should go and do a master's, but do a master's in IT because that's where your background is. And I actually then done it was before CodeClan existed, and probably if CodeClan had existed at the time, that would have been the perfect route. But at the time, doing a master's was what I done. So I went and done a postgraduate master's in IT, which opened up a whole new world to me. So suddenly I went from at the peak of the financial crisis, not being able to get a job with an English literature degree, to being in real demand, applying for graduate roles in IT. And I went to a job interview, and I said, I really don't want to code. Like, I can do it, but I don't really want to. And it was actually just speaking to other people in that community, and they went, there's a job where having an English literature degree might be really useful, and it's called a business analyst when you look at people's requirements for software. And it was having that kind of engagement that then fed me in. So certainly looking at options like CodeClan post graduation learning, such as a master's, maybe in a complete curveball subject that you've never done before, but which your undergrad has given you a stepping stone into. That totally changed my career.
It's really, really interesting. And I suppose, the coding, it's just touching on that element again through not needing to code to work in the industry. But it's great that, obviously, I mean, would you be able to code if you wanted to now, or no?
I would have to do some learning. Like, I can read Java. Like, if I get someone's PR, I could review it and understand it. But I certainly wouldn't want to be dumped in it. No, it would take me a few months to get back up to speed. If I'd done something like CodeClan, I think that would actually probably get me back up to where I was 9 years ago when I graduated. But yeah, no, please don't ask me to code anything just now.
Don't worry, likewise here, likewise. And Linda, like, I suppose, what tips would you have for someone who's maybe watching us right now, or like if they're looking, sort of, obviously there's so much talk at the moment about doing that switch, they may be nervous for whatever reasons. With the work that CodeClan does, I mean, what would you sort of give advice on?
Well, I would say it's never too late, at all. I mean, that's what CodeClan's all about. It's career changers. That's our demographic is really sort of 28 to 65. We've had come to CodeClan, that it's never too late. And people come from every background to CodeClan. They come from hairdressing, taxi drivers. We've had ballet dancers, professional ballet dancers, engineers, finance. Every kind of background that you could possibly think of, they've come to CodeClan. I mean, it's helpful if they've got an interest or they've looked into it, but they can come to us with absolutely no experience whatsoever. And it's as I say, it's never too late, and it's just an amazing world to be in and be involved in. And the boot camp scenario is your perfect scenario. It's 16 weeks. You come in, don't need to know how to write a single line of code, and you come out the other end and you can go into a junior software developer role or a tester's role, or it's never ending. And what I found is somebody, again, that's come from a non-tech background, a non-business tech background, is a lot of tech companies have fantastic internal programs. Like, we have great partners that will then take a junior software developer and then continue their training program internally, you know, and I don't want to start dissing other companies, but that was kind of the area that I focused on when I was in the chamber. It was really hard to find companies that had really good internal training programs. But what I'm delighted at is in that kind of tech space, a lot of them do come in at this level, we'll work you to this level, you work you to that level. You know, they look after you, and your training is never ends, is what I've noticed from a lot of our good partners. Yeah.
Amazing. I think, yeah, no, the training side is something, yeah, we've heard, like, it has been echoed, I think, across the developer community in general. Like, obviously it's such a competitive market in terms of companies trying to get the right tech talent. But one thing that seems to be a consistent message coming from tech teams or tech candidates is the training is very hit and miss. And maybe that's a case of, I don't know if it's companies maybe just, they just don't understand it themselves. I think that can be an issue. Like, oh, okay, like, do I really understand what you do as a developer? But then, like, taking them further, like, you've hired them for that job, but obviously they're only going to do that job for about, what's the average time now? About 2 to 5 years, if that, before they move on to another one. I think developers move a lot quicker than other industries as well. So how can companies, I suppose, getting those resources available to be able to retain that stuff? Because then we've got this gap, but then you've got companies that can't deliver what they need to deliver. So it's seems it's such a big topic to sort of touch on. Do you know of any sort of training, like what you don't always have to name any companies, but the companies that do it well, like, what have they implemented? I know, sort of going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but it'd be good to just dive a bit deeper into that.
Well, one of our partners, I won't name names, but they're probably, I think they, in case I don't get the details right, they'll probably be delighted if I mentioned their name, is they have like an 18-month program for all our code planners, and they've hired about 24, 25 code planners. Is that every time they reach a certain stage, then they go up their wage bracket. You know, 6 months, if they've learned how to do this internally, they go up the wage bracket. Next 6 months it goes up again. Next 6 months it goes up again. So, and they have a last one in supports the new person, the first person in, if you like. So it's a sort of a tag team, if you like. So the code planners keep going up and up and up, and whoever's in last helps the first person in below. So it's a great internal program. It's constant support, because again, I'm not the expert, but from what I've seen is a lot of people want them to get up to the senior developer as soon as possible, and there's a big shortage of senior developers. So the more they support the junior developers to get them up the ladder, the better it is for industry in general. So there seems to be a lot of support out there.
Linda's giving me tips here, because this is exactly what we're building at Fangio. So for the first time ever, we've hired from Code Clan before, but never as part of the partnership. Always with direct entry, and we've looked to establish a 1 year essentially training program, but it's a fixed term contract, with the intention of getting people to the point where they could be coming in our 3 to 4 years experience, what we would normally have, but within that 1 year, creating a kind of community of practice between those engineers so that they can help each other once they're in the door, but also just bringing in people at that level. Yes, it helps us with creating a diverse workplace, which is massively helpful. People from all different backgrounds definitely helps make for a more interesting and more engaged community. But I think as well, it's helping us with our senior engineers, because we have a lot of people at one specific level who came in maybe with 3 years experience, and we need to give them opportunities too. We need to give them opportunities to mentor, to help train people like them, to be engaged with it, rather than just here's a bunch of bugs, work through them or whatever. And bringing in people at a more junior level is helping us build up what we want our senior engineers to be doing as well, so that we can create, essentially, as you said, like, not a conveyor belt, but throughput, so that people have evidence that says, well, I'm no longer a senior engineer, I'm a principal engineer, because here's a bunch of people who were underneath me who succeeded. So it just helps us with that entire life cycle, and hopefully gives us the opportunity to retain people beyond that 3-year kind of window within tech, because we're giving them the opportunities to learn, whether it's line management or mentorship or coaching or any of these things that people look for, and then move on because they're not getting it in their current role.
Yeah, no, it's it's good that obviously you're reviewing it. I suppose, how have you found, Marie, the last year or so? Because obviously one thing from speaking with loads of different companies in the last year, I think we all know the struggles the pandemic has caused, both personally and for businesses, like building that engagement. So is there anything, what have you guys been utilising to try and maybe boost that, or you're thinking of bringing into place?
Well, I think that's part of why we are doing the formal partnership with CodeClan now. Like, historically, we had planned to have a graduate scheme or an entry-level programme from last year. And then we just got it set up and the pandemic hit, and we're like, do we want to bring in? And at the time we had plans, a big bulk of people all coming in at one time, going to be a cohort of their own and work together essentially as their own unit before they went out into engineering teams. And then obviously COVID hit. We didn't want to have to do that remotely. We thought that's adding extra complexity. You're essentially putting people through a boot camp within a boot camp. And so we completely restructured it, because we know people are going to be onboarding remotely, and we've made it open hiring. So rather than bringing on a bunch of people all at once, they're going to be brought on within the teams that actually need them, and have the capacity to support them, particularly remotely, because we're going to have a lot more pairing and things like that. In terms of engagement, as I said, we've now got our partnership with well, we've not signed the contract yet, but we are going to have a partnership with CodeClan, and I think just more formal relationships, and also just a part of that giving back to the community as well. I think we've identified that we have a huge upskilling and scaling that we need to do. Like, we are hiring 169 engineers this year within Scotland. And in order to support that level of hiring, we simply need to have that engagement, and we have to have that visibility. And because our product is largely in the States, a lot of the time people don't realise that FanDuel exists, and they certainly don't realise that it was born in Scotland and founded in Scotland and started as a startup here and was funded by Scottish Enterprise. And getting that visibility out means that having those relationships, going to the university, online careers events and things like that, and just trying to kind of give back a little bit more to the community.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the community element is so important, and just sort of helping people where we can. And I think what's becoming evident from the talk that we're having is it's like, it's not just an external issue, it's not just attracting developers and getting more people into tech, it's then those that we have got, how can we then push them forward and really boost them with their careers? So I suppose then moving on to, obviously we have mentioned it already, the elephant in the room, the pandemic, which has been with us now for the last year or so. I do try to avoid bringing COVID up as much as possible, because I think we've all had enough of talking about it, but it has impacted our lives, as we all know, in so many ways. How do you think this is an open question, but how do you think the recovery from the pandemic will impact the skills gap across the UK and the rest of the world? Like, is there an opportunity here to really close the gap with more people now looking to change careers?
I hope so. I certainly hope so.
Bit of a question, that one, wasn't it?
It's been a bit of a roller coaster for us, because we've always had very high volume straight into jobs. Not been a problem. The jobs have always been there, and then we had a big dip last year. Everybody froze on recruitment, and now it's just it for us anyway. It's busier than ever. Partners, more and more partners, and like the amazing partnership with FanDuel. As you've touched on there, the graduate scheme, there were some big companies that would didn't partner with us because they focused on their own internal graduate program. So this is great that more and more companies like FanDuel are looking at partnerships with the likes of ourselves to hire sort of the likes of CodeClanners. But it is going to get to the stage we've still got enough people coming through. So hopefully people really start to take this seriously and see there is an opportunity there. There will be jobs there in the long run, and making that career change and the choice to move into this world. So I hope so. I really hope so. We need them. We need them.
And Marie, have you got anything to ask that question?
Yeah, I mean, certainly within our industry, we've been very, very lucky in that we have seen positive results out of the pandemic, with people just being at home more, and being more likely to play online games, for example. But so we're seeing excellent growth. However, having said that, I think what am I trying to say? Sorry. I think moving online is going to hopefully or kind of open up a bit more of a diverse range of candidate as well. I think the pandemic has caused a lot of businesses, ourselves included, to look at more hybrid ways of working. None of that's formalised yet, but I think as we move through into seeing people return to the offices and stuff, it may open up IT roles to people who maybe weren't considering them before. And I'm hoping that we'll get people who maybe would only look for roles down in London, or companies that only offered roles in certain locations, to start saying, well, if people are going to be working a bit more remotely, or at least we're not seeing the drop in productivity from people working remotely, maybe they'll create more options to have people work for Scottish companies, but maybe from further afield, for example. Kind of break down some of those barriers would be good.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think it's like there's no limitations now in terms of, obviously there's certain roles which are always going to have your certain hours, like your factory hours that we still run these like 9 to 5. There's certain companies that will still run that way, but for tech it's like it doesn't really matter. Like, you could be based in the UK working for an Australian HQ company. Like, I think it's going to open up. I personally think it's going to boost the market. Like, we're already seeing there's an increase now. Like, last year was obviously horrendous. I think everyone knows someone that lost their job, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. But on the other side now, as we get towards the sort of like the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm definitely very sort of like excited to see what's to come over the next few years, because I think the position we're in now, if the pandemic hadn't have happened, it would have probably taken us about 10 years or so to get there. So it's it's been an eye-opening experience, a lot of panic from companies and individuals, but it's actually sometimes change is good, and having that shock change as well. It's like, right, okay, I've lost my job, I've got nothing, like, what do I do? And it's such, like, the industry is growing. It's the one industry, well, I know there's a few other industries that also did well, but tech just kept going and it hasn't stopped. It hasn't slowed down or anything. COVID isn't stopping it at all. I mean, they get their own version of bugs in tech, but nothing that a pandemic is going to affect. So it'd be really awesome to see these new roles. And I know there's a lot of companies diving into machine learning and artificial intelligence, which to some people who are watching this now, they may be thinking, what on earth? Like, that just sounds like way too mad. Like, I don't want to be involved in that. But once you start learning a bit more about it, I'm by no means like myself, like I'm not, as we talked about already, I don't code, but the artificial intelligence, machine learning, what it can do and what we can use within like med tech, for example, or ed tech to help everyone, like the general public. It's really, really interesting to see these startups popping up, but they need people. They need really good tech people in order to keep growing. But yeah, it'd be exciting to see what comes over the next few years. But it's something that sort of thought that came to my head because someone commented about, they thought that there was going to be an issue with young people getting work. Obviously, there was a bit of panic last year. A lot of companies did pull their graduate schemes and so on because they weren't sure what was going to happen. And I think the positive light is that from speaking with companies this side of past Christmas, so for this year, there's actually been a change of minds. Everyone's now thinking, right, it's fine. Like, we actually shouldn't have stopped last year because now we're on the back foot. I need to get going again, which you're both nodding your heads. So obviously have experienced something similar. So, but the apprenticeship route as well. So those that don't maybe feel university is for them, there's a lot more being done in the apprenticeship side. Like, I've seen the work that you do as well at Co-Clan, Linda. It's having those different accessible opportunities for people can really help with the industry, And then sort of moving on, I suppose, touching on that with the training side. So obviously you've got boot camps like CodeClan, obviously university route, if you decide to go that route. I didn't go down the university route just because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was in a year when they took it from £3,000 up to £9,000 a year. And I was a bit like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'm not sure. So I went down the apprenticeship route. Yes, not within directly technology, but it has got me to where I am today. In general, though, in terms of bridging this skills gap, and also I suppose a gender gap as well, how important do you think boot camps, training, just a general shift in what we're doing can help close these particular gaps? As I mentioned earlier, there was a common theme last week that a lot of the women we spoke to hadn't considered a career in tech until they're actually working in the industry, which I suppose includes me. I didn't really think about I work in tech until I worked in tech. So I suppose, yeah, just how influential can these training industries be, and what could maybe be done differently?
Should I go first? Well, firstly, I think we need all education to be working together on this just now. It will take absolutely everybody to fill this skills gap, because the skills gap is just going to get bigger and bigger. And as you said, you know, some people are on the back foot now. They all slowed down a little bit, and now it's like, we're super busy, you know, and it's just going to go crazy, I think. And we have at least brought everything forward 3 to 5 years. The pandemic, if there's any positive that's come out of this, it's the digital space and the remote working. But yeah, I think the boot camps, and, you know, us in particular, you know, the CodeClan or any boot camp in the UK are vital, you know, particularly for your career changers that have maybe not thought about this route to start with. It's 16 weeks, and then 16 weeks and you can hit the ground running to a degree, you know, you're into a job. So I think they're absolutely vital. They're probably a little bit less kind of daunting than going into university, you know, like women in particular. They've got a higher sort of risk sort of concern, you know, we worry about things more, we think about it longer, you know, we've maybe got families and, you know, kids and things like that. You know, taking 4 years out, it's a long time to end up somewhere, whereas your boot camp gives you that 16-week kind of, you're in new career at the other end of it, and you can hit the ground running. But it is a collaboration piece with everybody. We've actually been speaking to Heriot Watt about being part of their graduate apprenticeship scheme. So I think the graduate apprenticeship scheme is an amazing scheme as well. But we've got foundation apprenticeships in schools. Again, not every school offers them. You know, we got some terrifying stats when we dug into that as to how many kids are taking part in that. For the computer science, you've got your modern apprenticeships, but graduate apprenticeships is the great stepping stone into that, because you can be working while you're learning. So the project that Heriot Watt and myself at CodeClan would like to do is they maybe do CodeClan for the first year, so fast track the first year, then they're through the 16 weeks, they can actually work when they go into the company, and then they finish a more in-depth learning on the graduate apprenticeship scheme for the next 3 years. So I think we're all important in this space, but the bootcamp aspects is slightly less daunting, a little bit less risk adverse, very collaborative, fun. You know, we work in a lot of teams. When they're in CodeClan, it's just a little bit more modern way, shall we say, of teaching.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Marie, for yourself, I suppose, how important do you think boot camps and training, just in general shift, in
Well,
how
for us, they're going to be fundamental going forward, that these things are available. Modern apprenticeships too, or graduate apprenticeships. I know several people who've went through them and definitely can see the benefit of it. As you said, it's because of that risk factor as well. I think if people are learning as they're actually doing the job as well, it's reinforcing that they've made the right decision throughout that, and they're not just committing 4 years and then finding at the end of it it's not what they want to do. As well as that, we're looking at things like summer internships, 1-year internships, to try and give people a taste of what it's actually like doing the job. And yet again, just because our summer internships are going to look at things like roles in testing and QE and roles in business analysis and management, to try and give people a bit of a flavour, and maybe not just appeal to people who are coming in their 3rd year of a computer science degree or whatever, but maybe someone who's in a business degree looking for an internship and goes, oh, actually, I can do an internship over the summer and see what it's like to do business, but within an IT setting. So yeah, things like that and getting opportunities like that set up will hopefully enable us to be able to hire people in the future.
No, definitely. And I think just touching on that, it's having the being able to do it online, whereas a year and a half ago, well, I can't believe we're saying a year and a half almost now when it comes to the pandemic, it's easier, like things are so much more accessible on the phone. So those that are single mums, or whether you're in your 50s and you think, actually, I now want to switch careers, it's great to see that there are options out there. The university route, I think, will always have its place, because I think it takes a lot of dedication to do a degree. Something that obviously I can't say that I did, but I know that my friends that did do a degree and then went on to do their masters and their PhD. It's a huge commitment. But then that doesn't suit someone that's maybe in their early 30s, has a mortgage, has kids and so on. So the boot camp route or the home learning route, and also you've got the self-taught route. There are many developers who teach themselves. Now, personally, would it work for me? I don't know. I get very distracted. But there are different options out there for people watching who are maybe not sure what to do. And you feel free to reach out to any of us. I'm sure we'll be able to help with that. And I suppose, Lena and Alex, I don't know if there has been, I mean, first of all, guys, thank you so much for the discussion. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add before I open up. Conscious we've got of time, if there's any questions that have come up within the discussion, but unless there's anything Linda Marie would like to add to it.
No, I think we've covered it all off. As you say, I think it's actually exciting times ahead in this space. Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting things that happen. I'm campaigning continuously in this area, and if anyone's got any doubts, I would say don't have any doubts. It's a great space to be. As I said, it's like Narnia. It's exciting once you're in it and you start seeing all the exciting, wonderful things you can be involved in. Yeah,
no, Narnia, I think, is a good way to put it. So many opportunities, so many different things that can happen. Just hopefully no wicked witches.
That's true. That's not our next place to be. It's like, it's all these things I've never seen before. Or you existed.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, Alex, is there anything that popped up at all that anyone would like us to answer? Or
No, I was going to say just a big thank you from me as well. We don't have any questions coming through. Marie, obviously a last minute step in, so thank you very much. Linda, great. I think, yeah, boot camp's going to be really powerful going forward. I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head with all education's important. You know, everything going forward is great. There's going to be hopefully a huge shift into the tech industry. Like you say, the roles are definitely there with companies on the back foot already. So yeah, it's great to hear about FanDuel and what you guys are doing with CodeClan. And also, I think, Linda, something that's really powerful from what we've seen from the hack this week as well is that your kind of age range and your target demographic between kind of 28 to 65. I think that message of it's never too late is a great note to end on, I think, because yeah, that's super powerful, and it certainly hasn't just been grads competing this week for us. So hopefully, yeah, people can start considering a career in tech no matter their age.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for everyone that tuned in. Lovely to have you, even though I can't see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much for having me, inviting me along. Very much appreciated. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.